Hey there, it's Jason from Admission Prep, and I wanted to show you our university preparation checklist that you want to make sure to go through as you're sprinting through the last days of summer to get yourself ready for application season. And basically, we have this laid out the way it is because there's a general set of things that you want to be doing that doesn't matter if you're in grade 9, 10, 11, 12, doesn't matter. You should always do this first to kind of have an overview of where you want to go and why. Then there's things that really you can only do in grade 11 and really get prepared. And then we have our summer completion checklist. Now you can get caught up on some of the items from general and grade 11. And then these are the things that you really want to get done throughout summer completion so that we can make way for all the things that are coming for you in grade 12. Now, if you happen to be watching this or listening to this rather just on audio, we do have a video version that's available on Spotify and YouTube. So if you want to follow along, then you want to access this video or this podcast on YouTube, or make sure that you can see this video on Spotify. You can also send us an email at programs@admissionprep.com if you want to get access to the video version of this. And we'd also be happy to actually go through a consultation with you. So now here's what we want to do for each of these bullets and why. So when we get to the general, the reason we do this is first, you kind of roughly want to understand the number of schools that you want to be applying to. It's important to understand that as part of that strategy, you should not aim at just one, and then you also probably shouldn't do 20, right? So it's somewhere in between. And the somewhere in between depends on how competitive of a program are you applying to. If you're applying to a competitive program, it doesn't matter how good your grades or your profile is. You want to have multiple options just because they are so competitive. So we're talking any business, engineering, computer science, health sciences. All these programs are very competitive, and particular schools. So in particular, Waterloo's engineering, McMaster health science, and Western's AEO, which is their advanced entry opportunity to get into Western Ivy. Now, of course, there's a whole bunch of other programs, but these particular programs are very, very competitive. So we want to first understand that. Next, once we have that in play, we want to research the grade requirements for each of those schools so that we know, are we within range? Now, if you're watching this in grade 11 going into grade 12, there might not be a lot you can do about your grade 11 marks. But if you are watching this in an earlier grade, well, now you know what the bar is so that you can actually get your grades to that point. Now remember that getting your grades to that point doesn't guarantee acceptance. It just kind of gets you invited to the dance, so to speak. When you get there, you still got to dance. Now you're going to want to understand which of these schools have a profile or a portfolio, or are just a simple application. So maybe this is one where you just go to OUAC and you just hit apply, or BC Education Planner, or Apply Alberta, and you just hit apply. And you submit your grades, or that's done automatically for you. And that is some schools. But other schools, and many students don't know this, actually have a portfolio to create, or a personal profile, or a supplementary application. So you want to know what those are before you even apply to those schools so that you're not caught off guard. Then we want to find a student's successful application. Now, there are examples of them online, and sometimes they're truthful, sometimes they're not. We're fortunate to have students that have shared them with us that we're able to then share with our students, anonymized, of course. But the reason you want to do this is because you want to know about how far am I away in terms of my profile from another student that successfully got in. Just like you want to know the grade requirement so you know how far your grades are away or are you exceeding, you also want to know a profile so that you know how far away or are you exceeding there as well. Then, now every school has different questions, and they do vary year to year. Sometimes. Some schools are very consistent with their questions, and some schools are consistent-ish, they just vary them slightly. But regardless, each of these schools are going to ask a similar question. So you don't need to prepare for something completely random. You can actually begin preparing and thinking about how you as a person and your involvement and your initiatives and your leadership and what you do outside of school, how that can map to those questions, meaning how can you answer those questions? You want to keep that in your mind. Then we want to understand for your school, how much is that supplementary application worth in the decision-making process? How does that factor in to how that's compared to grades? So for Waterloo, it's a little bit different than McMaster, which is a little bit different than UBC, which is a little bit different than Queen's, a little bit different than U of T. So you want to understand each of those. And then even though you might not need to submit it, you want to write a personal branding statement, something about yourself, about your core values that you bring to the world, what lights you up. And you want to have that kind of internal knowledge for yourself in terms of like who you are, what you do, why, so that you can have a consistent theme or a brand around all your writing going forward. This is just so that you're aligned and not kind of randomly all over the map. Then we want to ideally start our first initiative or passion project, and we talk about that in our webinar, which you can check out. And then you want to plan out something called the impact formula, which is how to focus your activities without doing too many activities. A big thing for us at admission prep is that we aim to have you build an authentic student profile, not just a cookie cutter, jam everything you can into your resume. It's really about finding things that are authentic to you, which means that you can't do too much. You can't spread yourself too thin. You have to find the right amount of activities and do those and do them very well. Now, in grade 11, ideally this is done, which is that you've discovered your interests. You know roughly which direction you want to head with your studies. And of course, you have to plan your grade 12 courses. And that's important so that you're thinking of not only when are you taking your harder courses, but how are you balancing your schedule? And then also, are you keeping spares open so that you can work on your initiatives or your applications? Then we want to make sure to have a budget plan. There's no use going to a school that you can't afford or you haven't thought about how to afford. In Canada, there are lots of different ways to be able to pay for your education. And that's something that we can walk you through as well, and we can help you with. Now, here's one that a lot of students miss, is you need to build your references. So not just like have them theoretically there, but like actually have a conversation with them, and they should be able to speak to your actual initiative or your passion project. You don't want to just do your passion project in the dark with no one to be able to speak to it. You want to be able to do it where someone in the community is involved and would actually be able to write a strong reference about it. Then you want to continue building the activities that you decided to create in your impact formula. And lastly, we want to be reviewing the broad-based admission rubrics that the different schools have. So we want to look at how are they actually evaluating your personal profile, your supplementary, your statement of experience, all those things. You want to know what that is, so again, you can start to craft your responses. Now, what we always recommend that students do is they do these things during the summer. Everything in this list are done in summer completion. And now here's why. Because if you look in grade 12, you have to do all these things. You have to apply to the major scholarships, and they come much earlier than you think. And they also take a lot of work. Major scholarships are not, you enter your name, your email, and click a button. It's not how those work. You're doing full applications. It's just like applying to a university. So you have to do that, and that happens early in the year. Then you need to apply to your schools. And like I mentioned, if you're doing something competitive, like you're going to a competitive program, you're going to want to apply to a lot. We recommend at a minimum 5. And then, of course, you got to keep your grades competitive, because that's going to be a key determinant of whether you get in or not. And then if you have, to submit any financial aid, that's something that you need to do as well and be on top of. You need to plan your university housing, like where the heck are you going to live? Are you going to live on campus, off campus, and get that all sorted out? And of course, you got to keep doing your personal profile, the things that you are writing in your application. Remember, we're big believers in authentic student profiles, authentic student development, meaning that you got to keep doing that. You can't just like have done it and then just write about it. You got to keep making that impact. And it's not just because you're writing it on your application. It's because that's the right thing to do, and that's who you are. And so, but you need to keep doing that. So that's why grade 12 ends up being very busy. And of course, you're probably going to have your prom and your graduation activities, and then fulfill your grad requirements. So that might be community service hours, unrelated to your profile, might be certain things at your school. Every school has something different. So that's all coming in grade 12, which is why doing these things in the summer is so important. These are the things that you can do to get ahead of grade 12 and make sure that you're not behind the 8 ball in grade 12. Imagine if you wait and leave these things till grade 12 and you're trying to do them while you're doing everything else. So that's why we encourage students to do this. Now, it doesn't take a lot of time if you do start early and you get on it. And so those tasks are taking your big list of schools and getting strategic and then creating a short list of options. Like, what are the ones that you absolutely want to apply for? What are the ones that are bonuses? And what are ones that you're not going to apply to? The big mistake that a lot of students do make is they apply to too many. They apply to 25 schools. And because they're so focused on that, they end up actually dropping their grades, or one because they did 20, any one of those applications is not as good as it could be. Whereas if they apply to 5 that are strategically selected, they can put a lot more energy and effort and achieve a much better application. And then you've researched your deadlines for schools and scholarships, so you can create a work back plan. So you can actually start with what are your deadlines, which some come in early November for school. Early November, it's like it is way faster than you think. That's 2-ish months from start of school to applications. And that's when they're due, not when they start. That's when they're due. So you want to know when those are now, so that you can begin your planning now. You can put it in your calendar now. And you don't want to get caught off guard. The best way to miss out on opportunities is just not to apply. And that'll happen if you're not aware. So get aware. It's really important to do that now. Then we actually want to pre-write your school applications. Now, it's true that some schools do adjust these slightly year to year, but you're going to be within range. So if you write, let's say 80, 90% of it, and then the question is slightly different, or even if it's a completely different question, you can often just adapt the same work. And that takes way less time than starting from scratch. If you're the type of person that needs a few edits to get even close to good, like me, well then, you're going to need to get those edits in now. So it's better to do it now while you have less to do. Sit down for a morning, spend an hour and a half on something, get it edited, get it back, and just work on that week by week instead of trying to rush it all in 3 days when you're not going to do your best application. And then you want to, again, review the core values of each university that you're applying to help structure what you're doing and also your essay. And you want to think about this and not just, again, write it down for the sake of writing it down. You want to think of, does this school really align with my values? And if so, how so? And you can even start to live into that in the last part of the summer and into grade 12. This allows you to think about, what adaptations do I want to do to my own initiatives in the rest of grade 12, so that maybe I can enhance them and actually make them better. And then that is living in alignment with the values of the university. What a great thing to speak to. So this is what we recommend that students do in grade 11, grade 12. Now, if you're in an earlier grade and you want to know what to do, please reach out to us, programs@admissionprep.com. We're happy to help. And we've also prepared a longer webinar for you that kind of goes a bit more into what the initiatives and the impact formula are. So if you'd like to watch that, click the link that we're going to include in the description and check that out. And I hope you learned something today. And, if there's someone in your life, maybe you're a parent and you have a student, or you're a student and you have a friend that, kind of needs a kick in the butt and needs to get at least thinking about these things, send this to them. Hopefully it's a useful resource and it's going to save you some last minute panic down the line. So thanks for listening, or thanks for watching, and we hope to see you soon.